Welcome to Health and Hormones. This is Dr. Allen with my partner Ben Ashby. It's good to have you guys back.
Glad to be back.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Another one of these.
Yeah, been taking a little time off for some summer vacation, and actually Ben's leaving soon for more, but
Much needed.
Yeah.
Well, good. We wanted to talk today about. We kind of wanted to take a few steps back. We've had a lot of our patients and people that have been listening to the podcasts kind of say, hey, can you hit us with the basics?
Right.
And so today we're going to try and do a hormones for dummies. So
this is good for me. I can do this one well, I think. So let's see how that goes.
See if we could break it down a little bit more for people.
Good.
So if we could, let's start, Dr. Allen, with just a simple definition of what is a hormone.
Well, a hormone is a small protein structure that circulates in our bloodstream. And its function is to go from whatever part of the body it's made from, and it has a direct function to activate another cell or group of cells. I would say that the most easiest way to understand is that we have these important glands that make keys. It's a key factory, right? And each hormone is the same as a key. And it can go literally turn on a function. If it's like a testosterone can turn on a muscle cell, or it can activate. And so its job is to go and turn on that cell's function. And so I think the easiest way and the most simple way is just anytime you hear the word hormone, you really want to think about keys, that they're just turning on functions.
Okay, and then you said they come from glands.
Uh-huh.
Explain to us where those are and what they
Perfect.
do.
Yeah. So probably the most important gland, well, that's hard to say because there's so many, but one that makes the most is it's directly here and behind in your temples. It's something called the pituitary gland. And this kind of gland, its main function is to produce keys. So we just call that the factory, and it makes a bunch of different hormones on that. It can control thyroid, it can control your human growth hormone, it can control your corticosteroids. I mean, it can control so many different, but those are just keys. And so it's a factory of making keys. Then you have your thyroid gland. That's very important. It controls so many functions. But again, in this gland, it's making keys. You have your adrenals. In women, they have ovaries. In men, they have testicles. And so we have all these different areas where we can make these hormones that turn on function throughout our whole system.
So we know that they are keys made in factories,
Sure.
glands that secrete them.
Exactly.
So let's get into what are the hormones or the most important hormones that we may talk about in the podcast.
Well, I mean, we have a lot of hormones, but I would say probably the most important hormone for men and women would be the two hormones from your thyroid, which are your T3 and T4. They control hundreds of functions in the body, and they are so powerful and so necessary for sustaining healthy life. The first thing I tell every patient when they have any symptom is, how's your thyroid? And it could be stomach issues, muscle weakness, fatigue, brain fog, lack of motivation. Thyroid controls so many functions, and when your body makes enough keys and enough cells are activated, the system does really well.
So you're going directly to the factory in that case.
Exactly.
To try and help it perform to its
optimal
potential.
And the problem is, and we'll get to this at the end, but we have so many things trying to shut down the factory. We don't want the factory working, or the world doesn't want the factory working. And so there's so many agents that are turning off this factory. And so when it happens, it usually happens very slowly. So patients just think, oh, this is normal, or I'm aging, or whatever we think it is, or I'm under stress at work. And they don't realize that this slow decline in the production of our hormone or the keys means in our body less cells are being activated, so that you can't have the energy during your day or the clarity of thought or all these other healthy normal functions, because we don't have enough keys to turn on enough of the cells in that part of that body.
Awesome. So we spoke of a couple keys, the T3 and T4,
T4.
which are produced in your thyroid.
Exactly,
correct? Then let's go to a couple that we've already done episodes on, which
sure.
if you guys want more information about these, go check out these other episodes. But
Right.
let's talk about estrogen.
Oh my gosh, I love to talk about estrogen. It's known as a hormone for women, and yet it's so important for men. Estrogen helps with fertility. It helps a female especially, stay regular. When it's in its normal level, you're motivated, your bones are healthy, your heart is healthy, your brain is healthy. It's so important for protection against, long-term disease. Very important for pelvic and pelvic floor health. A lot of people, as they get older, there's so many pelvic floor diseases that can happen, and it's all from this important hormone, which is another key. And so one of the things that people get confused about is they think, well, if I fix my thyroid, for example, then all my other hormones will fall in place. And that doesn't make any sense, especially if you think about the key analogy. If I have a key to my car, does it work for your car?
Yeah.
It doesn't. And so each key has its individual function and individual cell that it's going to activate, right? And so it's super important. That's why estrogen is so important in a young woman and also in a postmenopausal, which means after they stop having periods. Both women need estrogen.
Okay, let's go on to progesterone.
Oh, okay.
Another one that works a lot in hand with estrogen.
Yes, I heard a study one time that said that progesterone is so important in women to help them feel happy, that they think that it should be put in every water that women drink, just so every woman can be that much happier. It's so important for the well-being, the happiness, the sleep, the healthiness of a cycle. I had my first TikTok that went crazy, and you ought to check it out. But again, I stand by it. When your progesterone is right, the cycle, when they actually start their period, they'll bleed for 2 days or less without pain, no PMS. Progesterone is so important for the health and well-being of women.
Okay, next, testosterone, which again is more probably geared towards, we think, men, but
Right.
just as important in women.
Exactly. Just like women need a higher dose of estrogen than men, and men need some. Men need a higher dose of testosterone, but women need some. And again, this is a very important hormone, especially in our day and age, because of exercise. If you want your optimal exercise, your testosterone needs to be optimized. It is a performance-enhancing drug, so if you're a professional athlete, you're not allowed to do this because it gives you an unfair advantage. But for the rest of us that aren't already elite athletes or professional athletes, it's okay, right? Because why can't we perform at our best when we go to work, or when we're a mom, or when we're a dad, or I'm a grandpa now, so I want to be the best grandpa I can. Right. And so why can't I have the energy to be the better version of myself?
Awesome. So testosterone, the next would be, we just did our episode last week on cortisol.
Cortisol, yeah.
So cortisol and then insulin.
Cortisol is a very important hormone because it's our stress hormone. It's our fight or flight. It's what helps each person maintain high stress, or if you're in a bad situation or a bear attacks you or whatever, is an old analogy. It helps you get through this acute stressful. The problem is too many of us are living at that high level of stress constantly, and so then it can become a burden. But again, this is an important key that turns on cellular function. Every one of these that we've talked about, so thyroid, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, are just a different shape, a different form of a key that can go to different cells in our bodies and turn on different cellular functions.
What about insulin?
Okay, so insulin is also a hormone made from a different gland, the pancreas. Its main function, though, is to regulate sugars and dietary things. And so as we eat our foods, it's a reactive hormone. And so we're finding that it reacts, and sometimes because our foods have been changed and there's so much in our foods now, there's so much more carbs in our foods, it's having to react so much that the higher that insulin goes, there's a lot of other effects. So there are other hormones but not all of them are positive, right? So if insulin gets to where it's too high, that's where we get insulin resistance and we can go down the pathway into diabetes. Same with if like thyroid is too high and there's too much of thyroid, you can go down into hyperthyroid, which means too much thyroid, which can cause a whole nother set of issues. And so again, the secret is to give you your optimal amount of your key so you can have the best performance without going too much. And it's interesting, I just had it happen again where a man comes in and says, hey, I'm on testosterone, but it's not working yet. It's not working enough for me. It's not enough. And we did blood work, and so we were there to review that, and his testosterone was perfect. It was optimal. It was as good as he had probably been when he was in his 20s. The problem was his thyroid wasn't, and his DHEA wasn't, and his vitamin D, and some of the other hormones were not right. And so what so many people get confused in is they think, well, if I fix one key, then the whole system gets fixed. And it doesn't work like that. And to use another analogy, a car analogy that sometimes I like to use, if, for example, thyroid is like the oil of your car and testosterone would be the gasoline of your car, well, if it says in your control panel, hey, low in oil, would you ever go to the gas pump and fill up your gas tank, but then take gas and put into the oil canister or whatever compartment the oil goes into? No, you never, because gasoline does not replace the oil. And the same thing, one hormone doesn't replace another. Now, some hormones work better together, so they help things better, but one can't replace the other.
Okay, so you've gone over the specific, all the different types of keys, right? Or some of them, right? Not all of them, but a lot of them. A lot of the ones that we focus on when someone comes in for testosterone replacement therapy or hormone replacement therapy, right? Now, tell me the things that will help the factory stay at an optimal level or help the factory continue to produce the keys.
Perfect. Well, it's no different than the rest of our body, right? The healthier we treat our system, the better you'll feel across the board. So what does that mean? Getting a good night's rest, eating healthy. We've learned, I'm not a big proponent of any particular one diet because as a person I've struggled with my weight for many years, all of them had some benefit and some things I hated instead. But we all know if you look at one thing that's consistent across every diet is cutting out the junk, right? Yeah. The processed carbs, the extra sugars, and just eating a healthy, home-based cooked meal. I think, counting your macro, I think, there's so many healthy ways to just eat healthy, right? So eating healthy and then obviously exercising. I think I went to a medical conference and one of my favorite professors said, well, if you didn't exercise that day, you really shouldn't be eating because that's how important it is. Now, I don't know that we can say that across the board, right? But that should put, if you haven't done anything, go out and go for a walk or go do something and try to be active and you will feel better. One of my favorite stories was I had an older patient who was in his 70s, had been on 3 blood pressure medicines for 15 years or more, and just moved down to Arizona. And I felt like I needed to talk to him about being active. And so he had a nice neighborhood. And I said, well, why don't you just walk around the block? He's like, that won't do anything. I said, I promise, just get walking. Well, 3 months later, this patient passed out and came in and was like, Dr. Allen, I passed out. What's going on? And I said, well, tell me what's going on. He goes, well, the first day I walked around the block, and he goes, I actually had such a good day that I walked around again. And after 3 months, he goes, I got to where I was walking around my block 10 times. And what was crazy is his blood pressure, just from walking, we had to take him off 2 of the 3 blood pressure medicines because he just started moving. And he felt so good. He's like, I got through my day better. And so, again, he didn't run a marathon. It wasn't pulling a sled, right? Like the olden days, like we used to try to do. But he just got moving. And there's so much power in just being active and going for a walk. And
so you mean to tell me sleep, proper diet, and exercise will keep the factories running.
It's revolutionary.
Yeah.
I know that you've never heard that
Wow.
before, but those are those just secrets that just help. The other thing that's is keeping stress, control of our stress, right?
Taking breaks.
Yeah. Now, if you're like me, I did pretty good growing up, and in my early 20s, I went bald, and nobody could explain it. And then I started gaining weight, and then I started feeling sluggish. And so my factory was being shut down because I love to eat sugary foods, and not a little bit. I love it. And so I put myself into a really bad place, right? When I was going to medical school, I was study, and there wasn't enough time for exercise. And so I got myself in a downward spiral. And that's why I have become so passionate about this, is now that I couldn't exercise, I was too tired. So once you get your hormones optimized, now I feel so good. I want to do that, or some form of work or something to help my body feel better.
So you've told us the things that we should be doing to keep our factories running appropriately. I'm assuming the things that we shouldn't be doing are going to just be the opposite of that, right? But now that we know how to keep them running optimally, we know that that's not the case in all of us, and we're trying our best, but maybe we're eating and we're sleeping well and we're doing all the right things. But how do we go about learning if our hormones are in balance or if our factories are open and running effectively?
Well, I would say if you aren't getting through your day and you're requiring a nap, if you're requiring energy drinks to keep you running through your day, or some form of a stimulant, whether it's extra coffee, extra energy drinks, or extra soda, whatever it is that helps you get, if you're needing that, then the easiest way to test is a blood test. I just think there are certain hormones that can be checked really easy. There's labs now that you can go order these tests on your own. And so you can go find out. And then the secret is to make sure that the range, we won't get into that today, but the range is so broad that makes sure you're at the optimal level, which is the upper range of normal.
I think it's important to note, all of this can seem overwhelming, right? Because there's so many different keys and so many factories, and we're trying to break it down in a simple level. And I, as a patient of yours now for years, can, attest that it doesn't need to be overwhelming. Just start with getting your blood work done. And what we'll have is a lot of the patients won't take on every single thing that Dr. Allen recommends. You don't have to. He'll go through your blood work, or one of our providers will go through your blood work. They'll go over what is the most important thing that we need to attack at the time. And then from there, we come up with a plan with the provider. And so if you feel overwhelmed, if you're overweight, if you feel like you're checking a lot of these boxes and not feeling awesome about it, get your blood work done, call us, and I can promise you that there will be a step. It doesn't need to be a ton of things at the start just to get you in a better place. And so whether that's, again, just getting on some type of thyroid medication, or maybe it's just getting out and exercising, it's the push you need from your provider to say, hey, get walking around your block and take some vitamin D or whatever it is. But this may seem very overwhelming. I can tell you it's not once you kind of get meeting with the provider. But getting that blood work done and taking those steps to a healthier, happier you it's important, and it doesn't take that much effort.
And it's easier than you think. And I will tell you, you're never too late. We have patients that are young, and we have patients that are mature. And it doesn't matter how old you are. We think everybody deserves a chance to feel their very best. Watch this. Let us know if you have any questions. And thanks for joining us here on Health and Hormones.